What should we be looking forward to when it comes to this Sunday's Minnesota Vikings game? There are a lot of different elements to take a look at, one of which, starting quarterbacks. JJ McCarthy's in his 9th start. Jaxson Dart's going to be in his 10th, and they are the 2 youngest quarterbacks in the National Football League. On the other side, a lot of people are looking toward the NFL draft. What's more important, winning or draft position? It's a really tough debate, and we're going to talk about all that and more here on the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy, where they got a nice little holiday bash going on this week. And with your first $5 play using the promo code Forno, you can get $75 in bonus credits. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, is producer Dave. And we are 7 days away from Christmas. That also means 7 days away from the second Vikings game in the next week, as the Vikings will take on the Detroit Lions. But before we get there, we have the New York Giants coming up. And the last time these two teams faced off was in week 1 last year, when we had no idea what Sam Darnold was going to look like. And he started to show us signs that, hey, maybe this guy might just be good. And obviously it was the New York Giants, and the New York Giants weren't very good last year. And they aren't that good this year, which could make things a little bit more interesting. Before we kind of get going, Dave, how are you feeling?
I'm good. Got all my Christmas shopping done. Did the last of it today, all except for the food. I got to still order that. But.
Yeah, I need to go and get a couple. Well, so every year my family used to do a smorgasbord for New Year's Eve. So this year, Christmas Day is kind of going to be low key because I have to work, obviously, Minnesota Vikings football. So we're just going to do a smorgasbord and have a bunch of food out. I'm going to get a couple of racks of ribs and smoke them. My dad makes these like these Asian teriyaki style wings that marinate for like 48 hours, and then you bake them and they're just bonkers. I haven't had those things. I haven't had them in like 15, 20 years. So I'm really excited about it. And then, your chips, your dips, and my mother-in-law will probably make some brie thing because my wife's side of the family loves baked brie. So yeah, we're primed to have ourselves a good old fashioned Christmas. No prime rib this year. I've smoked prime rib the last, I think, 3 years. Turned out great, let me tell you. But I'm excited to kind of get going. But before then, we have another football game, and that is the New York Giants. And this will be the last road game for this Minnesota Vikings team. And so far this year, I believe they have 3 or 4 road wins. Yeah, Bears, Lions, Browns, Cowboys. So 4 of their 6 wins have come on the road. Obviously, one of those counted as a half road win because it's a neutral site, but they were the road team.
Where?
They have
Chicago?
No, Cleveland, when they played in London.
True.
They were the technical road team, but let's be honest with ourselves. It was a neutral site game. And quite frankly, you could argue it was a borderline home game with how many Vikings fans were there. But it's been interesting watching this team on the road because they're 4-4 on the road, which historically, at least in my lifetime, this team has been bad on the road, like really bad. So it's good to see that they've kind of flipped a corner there. But it'll be the last road game. It'll be the only time we really see JJ McCarthy in bad weather, which is something that we highlighted this offseason when the schedule came out. Bad weather. Interesting from that perspective, but I'll also say this. It's good to see him in different situations. It's good to see him in potential bad weather. And quite frankly, I don't even think the weather's going to be bad, but it'll be cold. So it won't be ideal playing conditions. And you want to see a young quarterback have to navigate a lot of those. So then it gives you answers. And we've talked about it a lot with McCarthy. One of the tougher parts about his evaluation was he had so many more questions to answer than other quarterbacks because he had so much less experience in different situations. He has played in some quote unquote bad weather games. Obviously, you play in the Michigan Ohio State matchup. That is always really cold and oftentimes snowing. It snowed this past year, which I thought was very funny when I'm watching Michigan Ohio State from the pool in Mexico, and they're just dealing with the snow. Very funny. But seeing him in those situations is a good thing. But the big question a lot of people have is it a good idea to win the football game, Dave? Because this is a game that does not matter. And by does not matter, they can't get into the playoffs. They can't win the division. They can't get a higher seed in the playoffs so they can make a run for a Super Bowl. No, there is going to be no happy ending for this Minnesota Vikings team. The happy ending they get is going to be by winning the final 3 games. And you can quantify or qualify it however you want. That, oh, maybe this will be a good ending for us. Or, hey, you know what? I don't really care that they won these games, because the real reason why people don't want to see the Vikings win these last 3 games is because of draft position. And we talked about it a little bit on Monday, but draft position is going to become a huge topic of focus over the next few days, over the next 3 weeks. And if you go, there's a handy little website. It is called Tankathon. Yes, Tankathon.
And I just looked at the weather for Sunday in New York.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be 48 degrees.
Oh, so we barely even get a cold weather game. So never mind about that. So right now the Minnesota Vikings are 13th. They have pick number 13. They are the last of the 6 and 8 teams. The Dallas Cowboys are behind them at 6, 7, and 1 because they have the tie. The tie is going to be a big negative for the Dallas Cowboys when it comes to draft position.
Hopefully it'll be a big negative for the Green Bay Packers as well.
I hope so. It would actually kind of be perfect for them to win the division, get the bye, and then lose in the divisional round. So then they get the 28th overall pick, which then has to go to the Dallas Cowboys. And then they don't pick it for the first time until, I believe, pick 60, which that sounds pretty great. But record matters. And it's not just record that matters. It's also strength of schedule, which the Vikings' strength of schedule is right now the toughest strength of schedule. But a win over the New York Giants, that strength of schedule is going to crater because the Giants will then become 2 and 13. So right now the Vikings are 13th and they have a 523 strength of schedule, meaning the opponents they played have a 523 winning percentage in aggregate. Well, guess what? Kansas City has a 519 winning percentage, meaning that with a loss to the Giants, they could end up leapfrogging the Kansas City Chiefs if they stay tied. Now, the Dolphins, they're also 6 and 8. They have a 483 strength of schedule. I don't think you're catching up to them. But those little details end up mattering when it comes to this conversation, which is why wins and losses are so, for lack of a better term, important to the conversation. You honestly, every team that does not make the playoffs would love to have the first overall pick. I think it's smart to, like, theoretically, if you look at things on paper and you look at the analytics and the data, losing those games is a great idea because then you get a higher draft pick. But it's so much different than just looking at a data point. It's so much different than just, hey, just go lose these games. Because organizations will tank, players and coaches won't. And this is where the dichotomy of having some of these conversations gets really complex. And one of the people you can ask, don't actually ask him because I don't think he can actually talk about it because of the lawsuit, but Brian Flores. The Dolphins wanted to tank. Everybody knew the Dolphins were tanking. You know who didn't? Brian Flores. And they won 5 of their last 8 games in that 2019 season to drop from 1st to 5th overall. And they picked Tua, passed on Justin Herbert, but there's so much that is hindsight because Herbert was an incredibly divisive prospect in real time. And Tua wasn't. So they don't get Joe Burrow. They get Tua, and now there's a pending lawsuit because of the tanking thing. But the whole reason I bring that up is because organizations realize that, hey, if you're not going to win, you might as well be as bad as possible and get the best draft pick and set yourself up for success. The problem with tanking, and the problem with where this kind of relates to the Minnesota Vikings, is coaches and players are always playing for their next contract and their next job. There are going to be multiple Minnesota Vikings coaches that don't stick around next year. There are going to be multiple Minnesota Vikings players that aren't here as well. If you look at it just from the Rick Spielman era till now, I think there are 10 or 11 players still from the Rick Spielman era, which means there's over 42 players, not including the practice squad or injured reserve, that did not come from the Rick Spielman era. You have Jefferson, O'Neal, Darrisaw, Eric Wilson, CJ Ham, Blake Brandel, Josh Metellus, Harrison Smith, Andrew DePaula. I might be missing one. Oh, Justin Jefferson. I might be missing one out of that, but that's 10 guys right there. It's not exactly a league where you can keep a ton of continuity. And that matters in these situations because you want to try and maximize everything you can. And if you dog it out there, well, if you dogged it for the Vikings, why would I, as the Ravens, want to sign you? So, or as a coach, same thing. You're always trying to put your best effort on tape. It's just like all of us with a job resume. If you win Employee of the Month, you better believe that that's going to go on that resume. I got a couple Employee of the Months. They're on my resume. I guarantee you that. So all those little details end up mattering. And one of the things that is really tough about the idea of losing these games is it's bad for the culture. It's good to have high draft picks, but is it really that important to go from 13th overall to 8th overall, where you might be willing to sacrifice your culture? Maybe that's what pisses Justin Jefferson off. And if you ask the team to actively try to lose, or you show them that we're not about winning, it could set you back a lot. And then you have to weed everything out and then start over. That's not a good thing. This isn't a bad football team. This is a football team that has played bad. There's a lot of good to this football team. There's a lot of good on that roster. There's good in the coaching staff and front office, but they just haven't been able to put it together for a multitude of reasons. One of them being injuries, some of it just being stubbornness, and putting all that and just saying, oh, we're just going to flush it all down the toilet because we want to lose 3 games in a row to get a slightly higher draft pick, which I'm going to be real with you. The difference between 13 and 8 is negligible this year because it's not a great draft class. Not smart business. It's bad business. You want to continue to win football games for your players. The players want to keep winning football games because it helps put stuff on their resume for when they have to find another job. And it's good to continue to build. If the Vikings finish out the season 9-8 and won 5 in a row, that's great going into next year. Think about it this way. If JJ McCarthy wins 5 games in a row, how different is the narrative going into the offseason than it was coming off of that Packer game where he was just the dirt worst? It significantly changes. And that's where culture matters so much more than draft position. And it's a tough conversation because I cover the NFL draft. We have our first episode of SKOL Search in editing right now. By the way, members are going to get first access to it. And then each individual episode will come out on podcast after it publicly releases. So you're going to get plenty of time, plenty of opportunities to access all of this data, okay? But NFL draft analysts will tell you that it's better to lose and tank for the idea of being able to get a higher draft pick. And in theory, it makes sense, but it's also a culture thing. And one of the other reasons why tanking doesn't work, we'll revert back to that Miami Dolphins conversation, is let's say this Vikings team decides to tank. Well, guess what? They're going to trade Christian Darrisaw. They're going to trade Justin Jefferson. They're going to trade Jonathan Grenard. They're going to try and get draft picks. And then the whole idea is be like, oh, those draft picks could turn into Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Grenard, and Christian Darrisaw. That's tanking. Now, if you have an older player, like the Colts got rid of Peyton Manning, but they had Andrew Luck waiting in the pipeline, that's a whole different conversation because you're replacing a Hall of Fame quarterback with a guy who, if he would have stuck around long enough, was going to be in the Hall of Fame. Andrew Luck was considered one of the best quarterback prospects of all time. He's talked about like John Elway. Special. So, moving on from a player like that, and the age too, makes sense. But do you really want to give up guys in their prime just for lottery tickets to draft picks? Why not just keep them, maneuver around it? And the whole idea of the competitive rebuild makes a ton of sense. Because when you look at the competitive rebuild, the name on itself sounds really stupid. Oh, I'm going to rebuild, but I'm going to be competitive. I'm going to completely change everything about my roster and keep winning football games. Kind of sounds like an oxymoron, right? Well, the Vikings were 34-17 during the 3 years of that so-called competitive rebuild, and they got mocked for it. But they kept winning football games because they weren't willing to sacrifice the integrity of what they were trying to do, which was continuously win and just retool a roster that honestly had been void of talent in certain areas, and they were void of salary cap flexibility, which we can look at the number and see that we're over $30 million above the salary cap next year, but they have a ton of flexibility to get under that. It'll be very easy to get in cap compliance and feel good about it without taking these massive hits. You can restructure Justin Jefferson and Christian Darrisaw and spread their money out over 5 years, which is really not that big of a deal. And all of a sudden, guess what? You are super close to being even with the salary cap. And you're still going to have to add about another 15 million more because, one, you have to account for the draft picks. So the salary cap space being, what is the right word for it? That there's a way they talk about salary cap space where it's what your salary cap space is and the expected salary cap space. I just don't remember the framing of it. If you remember, Dave, please jump in. But
you're paying the top 51.
No, not the top 51. It includes the what your expected draft capital is going to be paid.
Right. And they judge that or compute that via how many picks you've got.
And where they're projected to.
Where they're projected to be, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that cap space, the Vikings are at about negative 51 million. Mm-hmm. They can easily make it work. Aaron Jones might not be on this team next year, save about 10 million. Javon Hargrave probably not on this team next year, saves 10 million. Brian O'Neill's got a $23 million contract number this year. Extend him, drop it to 5 million, save 18. There are a lot of things that you can do. And I don't know why the camera just turned off, Dave, but it went to
ask
sleep.
It to wake up or hit your. Oh, there you go.
That's why I have the app on. This camera, I got to tell you, it's got a mind of its own. But this whole salary cap conversation is an integral part of the tanking conversation and losing those games. The reality is simple. Always try to win. Tell me a time that tanking worked. The Bears, I guess. But to me, that was less about tanking and more about they lucked out by trading the first overall pick and then getting it the next year.
Yeah, but did it work? Eberflus got fired. They didn't get anywhere in the first 4 years under that regime.
It didn't work in the way that they were intending it to work. And quite frankly, is this Bears team really good? Or are they just that's a question in itself too. But the Dolphins tank didn't work. The multiple opportunities at the Browns, you could argue that they tanked for 15 years. None of that worked until they got Stefanski. And then they drafted Baker Mayfield. Yeah, the Jets tanks haven't worked. Tanks don't work because it requires you not to just trade away all these assets and give yourself a lot of space and give yourself a blank canvas. But then you have to convince all these players to come play for you. And then you have to pay them big bucks. And then you have to hit on all your draft picks. So what's the point? You're asking yourself to operate as a 90th percentile or higher success rate with that tanking philosophy. And that's why what the Vikings have done is so much smarter and so much more impressive because they didn't tank. Now, could they have made different moves to have put themselves in a better spot? Yeah. If you have 4 of the draft picks that missed over the past few years hit, that completely changes where this franchise is at. Like if Kyrie Jackson were still around, if Andrew Booth was really good, which I thought he was going to be coming out, if Lewis Cine doesn't snap his leg, there's a lot of what ifs. But if you don't hit on any of those picks, a tank looks way worse. You can mitigate it with what the Vikings did. And that's why the culture thing to me is such an important element. And I'm very happy about where the Vikings are currently at. And they should really go all out to try to win these next few games.
Mm-hmm.
And if they win these next few games, it's going to do wonders for their future. And that, to me, is the number one. Now, we'll talk about the Joe Burrow trade, I'm sure, more in the offseason. Burrow keeps making these vague quotes.
It's got to become him asking to be traded has to become reality before that happens. That obviously has to be in the league new year.
Yeah. And honestly, that's a really big factor. He has to want to be traded. Now, does he want to be traded? I don't know. I really don't. Because the way he talks is, what's the right way to frame it, Dave? He's almost being, he's trying to ask leading questions or lead reporters to a story like, I really want to go. Honestly, there's a good chance that he's just trolling and trying to have fun with the media, which
he lost his love for the sport of football.
Dave, are you a wrestling fan?
No.
Okay. The wrestling fans out there, you'll be able to relate to this. Shawn Michaels in the 1990s was the WWF champion, and he had to surrender. He surrendered the title because he was hurt, and instead of just doing a job on the way out, which was kind of customary, he dropped the title because he hated Bret Hart. And he cut this promo where he's like, I lost my smile. And it's an infamous promo, and it's the same exact thing where the idea was he lost his love of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just looking back on it, it's very funny.
Oh, we've got Adam Thielen.
Yeah. The Thielen trade.
Love for the game.
The Thielen trade. Look, the reason why Thielen wasn't playing is this version of Adam Thielen is a bad football player. Just has no juice left.
We had 3 wide receivers better than him.
Mm-hmm. And the whole idea for trading for him was you didn't realize or know that Jalen Naylor was going to be ready to take that next step. I'll be honest. I think that's a criticism of this regime because there should have been signs that he was going to be ready to take on that role. And trading for Adam Thielen,
but he had the hurt hand and he went for the surgery and such. And
that's right. Great point, because
they needed somebody.
Yeah. And Thielen, it didn't work. It was phenomenal PR at the time. Like, even my mom was texting me. She's like, is this real? Is this actually happening? People that are casuals, like my mom watches the games, but she's not a diehard. They were excited. People were excited to take their 19 jerseys out. They gave up too much of a price.
When we brought Randy Moss back.
Yeah.
And that was so cool.
And I think people forget sometimes that there's a business element to the National Football League. And that business, Adam Thielen's back. People are hyped. And if he would have just been a bang average receiver, I don't think we're really having a conversation like, oh, you just overpaid for Thielen. Like, if he has 20 catches for like 300 yards, I don't think anybody cares. I really don't. Because you brought him in to mitigate things for those first 3 weeks. And he should have, but, he's just bad now. And that stuff kind of just happens. But overall, the whole conversation, the whole first half of the show has been, I understand that people want to get a higher draft pick. I get it. But winning matters more. It always matters more. If you are at pick 13 instead of pick 8, pick 9, or pick 10, who cares? It's negligible. And this Minnesota Vikings team, honestly, I think drafting in the teens is going to be a lot better for you than drafting higher up, because the expectations are going to actually be more in line with what the talent of the player is. This isn't a good draft class. I'm just being honest. It's not. I've graded out 4 guys who are projected first round picks. They're probably going to get first round grades. Caleb Downs got a first-round grade. Shocker. Jermon McCoy from Tennessee did. And Mansour Delane came close to not having one, but he got one too. And Jeremiah Love is my next guy. So those are going to be the ones to watch out for with these SKOL Search episodes. I promise it's going to be a lot of fun. But there's not a ton of high-end talent. So having it pick in the teens makes a little bit more sense. Plus, because there's not a lot of high-end talent, if a team, let's say the Seahawks and the Steelers, they'll be picking behind us. And they're like, oh my gosh, there's this guy. We love this guy. We need to get him before he comes off the board because he's the last one of these players that we value highly. Well, maybe you can get a haul. And because there's a talent void, you can take advantage of that.
If people are willing, yes.
Oh, that's always the crux of the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lack of talent, it's a scarcity among resources. It's basic economics. If there's scarcity, people are going to be willing to pay more for that scarcity. Just like you see with sports cards, collectibles, when like stuff like there's scarcity of beef, there's scarcity of what do you call it? Like different vegetables, dairy, the eggs. People were paying like $8 for a dozen eggs because they were scarce for a while. Now it's like $3 for 18. I like that a little better. Two Evil says, and then we'll probably move forward because we're gonna have a lot of time for draft talk. But I thought that was a really important conversation to have ahead of this game because this game doesn't matter worth a damn other than entertainment value and building culture. Tweevil says we should audit Tyler Thorne, other content creators on their draft accuracy. Yeah, I don't think that's unfair. I can't remember what the site is, but I do enter a contest every year with my final mock draft. And I usually don't do too well because I'm not super sourced up. And all it takes is one thing wrong for everything to be derailed. But yeah, here's the tough part about grading draft accuracy. Everybody's going to be wrong, and they're going to be wrong a lot. You're trying to predict and project. And it's like meteorologists are kind of in the same boat. They have more data in front of them that's concrete, but they're still wrong a bunch. We used to joke that Paul Douglas, the old WCCO guy, I think he's out in Chicago. He might be retired. He was always wrong. So whatever he said, just expect the opposite. Because it's hard to be a meteorologist. It's hard to be a draft analyst. I'm going to be wrong a lot. I have been wrong a lot. But I'm going to be right. And the key is when you find a draft analyst that you want to follow and you want to listen to, are they trying to tell you that things are concrete? Are they trying to tell you things like, I know? And when they do miss, what is their response? I know I kind of dump on Bo Nix a lot. I still don't think he's that good because I think a lot of what his success has been due to Sean Payton's brilliance rather than Bo Nix as a quality quarterback. But I think I might have been wrong on having him as a fourth. But I don't think I'm wrong in that. I'm still questioning whether he's a franchise quarterback. But like I was wrong.
Super Bowl this year.
Hey, you know what? That I'm going to credit solely to that defense. The defense is bonkers, by the way. But like, I was wrong on Malik Willis. I was wrong on Anthony Richardson. But I still contend that neither of those guys, their development was handled right. So I still have some hope for them. But I was spot on with CJ Stroud. I was spot on with Drake May. Like, everybody was like, Caleb. Drake May was always number one for me. Every single time. So the biggest thing is authenticity and being able to find talent. You're never going to be 100%. Nobody's ever going to be 100%. Asking that of a draft analyst is a fool's errand. But do you like the person giving you the information? Do you like how they approach it? Do you think that they're honest? And they try not to have an ego with some of this stuff, which I do my best to not have an ego with it. But we all have an ego. We're human.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a fact of life.
Now, you got to remember, there's generally two types of people that do what you do. There's the ones that evaluate the college play, and then there's the one that predict how it translate into the NFL. And then they build their draft boards accordingly.
Yeah, evaluators and prognosticators.
Yes. And now, if you're going to do a mock draft, not only have you got to consider both of those, you've also got to consider teams and their needs and teams and who's doing the drafting on their part. It can be a complicated algorithm, and I'm sure somebody's developed that algorithm somewhere to hopefully nail it, but hey.
Yeah, it's a tough. Yeah, it's just tough. There's a lot of different ways to kind of go about it. So we'll continue to have those conversations as we kind of move forward. But as we move forward in this show, as I need to turn off my AI bot, it's got a nice little tracker, so it tracks my face wherever I go, which is really cool. But not when I'm just I move a little bit here. I don't want the camera to move. But this camera and this show are sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy, and there is a lot of fun happening with Underdog Fantasy this week. It is the Underdog Unwrapped over the course of the next week, and last night on the 17th, they did a Jake Paul fight, 50% boost. Tonight, it's a 50% site-wide unrestricted boost. And tomorrow, that Jake Paul one ends. And Josh Allen has a site-wide give me pick, which, if you remember the gimme picks, that's a fun one because it's going to be like higher or lower than 0.5 passing yards. The funny one was when Aaron Rodgers had that in week 1 of 2023, when the game he tore his Achilles, he went under. And I think that they just refunded everybody and just voided out that one leg of the lineup because stuff happens. But we're going to have a lot of fun with Underdog. I really like Justin Jefferson higher than 55.5 receiving yards because I think, we'll talk about it a little bit here, I think McCarthy and him start to figure it out. And Jaxson Dart lower than 197.5 passing yards because this passing defense is really good. And Jaxson Dart loves to scramble and run the football. And I think those two things will have that number a little lower than he normally would. Remember, use the promo code Forno. You can win up to 5,000 times your money. And on your first $5 play, get $75 in bonus credits. And you can take advantage of all those unwrapped bonuses and more during this Christmas and Hanukkah season. And all you have to do is be in one of those states that Dave has on the screen and have some fun with us. But remember, it is all about fun. So if you find yourself having just a little too much, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. A lot of interesting things with this New York Giants team to get into. And probably the biggest one, as I already mentioned, is Jaxson Dart, the quarterback. People on this show will remember I did not like Jaxson Dart coming out. I really didn't. I thought he was too much of a fuck around kind of quarterback where he wasn't great at reading defenses. He didn't have the strongest arm, but he could throw a deep ball. Now, throwing a deep ball is a little bit of a difficult proposition because you don't need a strong arm to throw a deep ball. Teddy Bridgewater threw a beautiful deep ball. Teddy Bridgewater didn't have the strongest arm, but he had an arm capable enough to run Norv Turner's Eric Coryell, which was important. You just needed to have a good enough arm. And those conversations can be difficult to have because there's so much more about playing quarterback than just having the arm talent. But Jaxson Dart has averageous tools. Not great. He was taken at 26th overall, the trade with the Houston Texans. And I got to tell you, he's been okay, but he's not putting himself in a good position to be a franchise quarterback. And here's what I mean. We talked about J.J. McCarthy putting himself in harm's way on the field. 2 instances where he should have just ran out of bounds and been safe. He got tackled inbounds right by the sidelines, and he suffered a concussion and a high ankle sprain. He missed 7 games because of that.
He's had multiple concussions, if I remember correctly.
No, I'm talking McCarthy here.
Oh,
but the reason I mention that is because Jaxson Dart is way worse at putting his body in harm's way. He lowers his head like a battering ram. There was one where he was on the outside. He literally dove head first at a guy. Like, he used his body as a spear. This guy puts his body in harm's way constantly. And he does it with reckless abandon. And one of the reasons I didn't really care for Jaden Daniels last year, I had him as a first-round grade. I thought he was a really good prospect. But what scared me was he put his body in danger constantly. There would be at least one play a game when he was at LSU where he would take a cartoonish hit like he was Wile E. Coyote trying to chase Roadrunner. Bad kind of stuff. Jaxson Dart is built a lot thicker. Dart's like 225. Jaden Daniels is built, he's kind of frail as far as what his frame is. I think he weighs like 205, but he's very skinny. And because of all those factors, I got to tell you, I'm not the biggest fan of having my starting quarterback play with that kind of reckless abandon. It's not good business. And
some people say JJ McCarthy does as well.
I think he does. He needs to be better at it. But Jaxson Dart has, I believe, played in 10 games, and he has been evaluated for a concussion in 5 of them. That's bad. That's really bad. Now, McCarthy needs to be smarter. I think I'd highly recommend everybody go back and listen to Wes Phillips talk about it on Tuesday, because McCarthy dives and not slides. And I think there's a ton of merit to it. The quarterback has more control over where they go. A hit is not going to decapitate you and fling your head with a whiplash effect into the ground, which causes a lot of concussions. That Teddy Bridgewater concussion in 2014 or 2015 against the Rams, when he got knocked out, I was on a slide. Slide is meant to be safe, but the problem is quarterbacks will slide too late. Defenders have less than half a second to make a decision on whether to try and tackle you. And oftentimes, by the time they made that decision, you are just about to start that slide. So you are putting yourself in harm's way unintentionally. And by diving, it gives you more control. Plus, you get more yards. The second any part of your body hits the ground, the ball is dead. It's not like the old days where a dive, you still have to be touched down. A dive is giving yourself up, and it's meant to keep you safer. Head first slides are more dangerous in baseball because of the nature of it, and you're sliding first and your wrists are jamming into the base, and then you have a chance of where your head can get jammed as well. It's a tough conversation, but there's merit to diving instead of sliding. But the one play that I saw referenced about it was one where he was running in the open field trying to get into the end zone, and he like ducked his head, turned it, and then lowered his shoulder into the guy. That's a different conversation. He needs to clean that up. That's bad. But later in the game, he dove for a first down. Smart play, because he's just diving forward and he's controlling what's happening to him. He's controlling where he lands. He's controlling his aim. That's a good thing. It's a very good thing.
I personally think diving is smarter.
I do too. I do too. I want to point this out, Daniel. We're going to do a whole episode on Jordan Addison in the offseason, talking about, is it smart to trade him? Is it smart to keep him? You know, what does that look like? How does Jalen Naylor fit into it? We'll have that conversation, but we're going to dedicate an episode to it. So we're going to try and hold off on as much on postseason topics as we can, because there's still games going on and there's so much time to talk about it. So don't worry. We'll get there. I promise. But McCarthy needs to do better, but Jaxson Dart puts himself in really difficult spots that way too. The other interesting thing about these two players is they are the youngest 2 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League. Jaxson Dart is only 3 months younger than JJ McCarthy. They were in the same draft or the same recruiting class. Jaxson Dart was the 3-star, I believe, he might have been out of Utah. He went to USC for a year, then Ole Miss for 3. But they're 3 months apart. And McCarthy decided to come out as a junior, which, I mean, he just won a national championship. He lost 1 game at the college level. Okay, that makes sense. Dart decided to stay, and it ended up making him a first-round pick because he would have been a late day 3 pick at best if he came out after his junior year. And with the NIL world the way it is right now, staying is good for college quarterbacks. It's also good for the NFL. So how these 2 quarterbacks play, I think, is going to be really important to the perception going into the offseason. If the Giants land the first overall pick, there's discussion. Oh, do you Josh Rosen, Jaxson Dart, and take for Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore? If you invested that much in him, it would be really hard to say, hey, I'm going to give up on this guy unless that guy really does just stink, which I don't think he's shown enough to say, hey, I'm going to give up on him after a year. Now, I think I would prefer to have Mendoza and Dante Moore over Jaxson Dart long term, but if you just give up on him, you're probably not going to get much draft capital back because you have to find somebody that wants him, that's going to pay you ample draft capital, and it'll make him a starter. 3 things that might be very difficult to put together. But perception-wise, Dart has had some really big moments. They beat the Eagles this year on Thursday Night Football. That was a wild football game, but they're 2-12. Not great, Bob. And McCarthy, he's 4-4 as a starter. He has won multiple road games. He's only won 1 game at home, and that was the Commanders. Now he goes on the road again. How is he going to handle that? How is he going to handle playing outdoors on the road? Because he's only done that 1 time. He's done that 2 times, never mind. But New York, that MetLife Stadium is an atrocious field. There's a lot of different conversations to be had about that. So those are going to be the number 1 talking points for the game, because it's all going to be about the young quarterbacks and wanting to see what the young quarterbacks can do. And I mean, it's for good reason. They both got taken in the first round. So the idea is that they are the franchise quarterbacks.
But also who's playing and who's not, who's injured and who's not.
This is a really interesting one because they decided to shut down Jonathan Grenard and Josh Metellus. My theory is both of those players had labrum injuries. Now, the labrum is that muscle tendon that runs like from your neck to your shoulder. It's kind of not in the joint, but it's underneath like your I think this is your lats. It's underneath there. I'm not a medical guy, so if I got the muscle wrong, I'm sorry. But it's one of those injuries where you can play with it torn. It's all about pain tolerance. And then eventually you should get it fixed.
Labrum is the ring of cartilage that surrounds the socket of the shoulder joint, helping to stabilize it and deepen the socket for a better fit.
Look
it's
at
like
me.
A meniscus tear.
I'm learning things, but you can play through a labrum.
Yeah.
You're not playing through a torn rotator cuff. And that's why I believe that these were both labrum injuries, because it's about pain tolerance. And then they're both are going to have surgery. Josh Metellus and Jonathan Grenard, they're shutting them down. They're out for the year. That's going to open the door for Dallas Turner to get more snaps in that Jonathan Grenard role, which I think when you have Van Ginkel, it's smart to play Turner in that kind of role. You can still do the Van Ginkel stuff with him, but he needs to get more reps rushing the passer and learning how to kind of bounce off deep or offensive tackles, yada, yada, yada. So those things all matter. And then to me, the big one is going to be Jay Ward. Jay Ward, 4th round pick. They tried him at nickel last year during training camp. It bombed. It was bad. And he's been a special teamer the majority of the year. Special teams has not really been his forte, but he has a chance now to take a humongous step forward and prove that, hey, Harrison Smith's probably gone next year. You should give me an opportunity to become the starter next to Josh Metellus. So this is going to be a big opportunity for him to step up and show that, hey, he can be that guy. And then if he does and he turns into a quality starter, then that's a humongous feather in the cap for Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, whose draft history has been murky at best. So it's going to open up snaps for those players. and that's a good thing. I would like to see some more snaps for Elijah Williams. That's a whole nother conversation. But with Javon Hargrave probably out, it could finally give Elijah Williams the opportunity to be on the 53-man game day roster. Sorry, the 46-man roster. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins could get more snaps. It's always good to win and continue to try to win, but this is also where you should get these young guys snaps. And injuries is going to be the easiest way to do so. Now, it's not always as simple as, hey, this guy injured, so we need to, or like if a guy's not injured, excuse me. If a guy's not injured, then, well, we don't need to like worry about playing anybody else. We can just play that guy. Well, flip him out. Flip him out.
George says a brilliant comment.
What's that?
Is this couples therapy via fishing analogies?
Did I say that as far as like a snatch trap?
I don't know if you did, but the guys are talking about fishing for salmon, both river and saltwater, and going fishing for halibut, which I love.
Hey, ship me some halibut. I'll take it.
And ex-wives.
No, I don't have one of those. I hope I never do.
Trust me.
I got one wife. I want to keep it at one wife.
I turned on my AI.
Yeah, these cameras, I mean, we come in crystal clear, but they can be tedious. Last thing to talk about tonight, Christian Darrisaw. I still think the Vikings should shut him down. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He didn't practice on Thursday. Kevin O'Connell essentially shut down Ben Gessling when having the credit to Gessling. He just straight up asked, are you considering shutting down Christian Darrisaw because of the inconsistent playing time and how much he's been dealing with that knee injury? He basically gave him the runaround and said, we're treating it as a week-to-week thing. Darrisaw is the perfect guy to shut down. I think they need to do it, but they might, for appearance's sake, my personal theory is they're just doing it week to week and they want to keep up appearances with like Darrisaw and stuff. That's kind of
I want to know what's causing his knee to swell. Because, there's ACL tears and there's ACL tears, and some could be more difficult than the others.
Remember, he did have an MCL tear too.
And
so that complicates it.
Yeah. But are we going to find out after the season, he had to go in and get a procedure to have scar tissue removed? Something like that. And that may have been irritating the knee and causing it to swell and causing him to be in a little discomfort and bowing out and say, Coach. I have no idea.
I don't either. It could be his body's just healing funky.
Because he is a top quality left tackle, and they are so rare in this league. So
I think there's a real chance they rushed him, because then one of the difficult parts about that conversation is we don't have access to the medical, so we can only go kind of by an outside the box perspective. But one thing that really stood out to me when talking about Darrisaw was the fact that he's like injured. He was injured, and they kept saying, "Oh, he's so far ahead of schedule. He's ahead of schedule. He's ahead of schedule." And then week 1 was going to be over 10 months removed from surgery. 9 months is kind of the quick healing time, and you get guys like Adrian Peterson hitting 9 months. Skill players, lighter players. Oh, you got Colonel Taylor? Oh, I love Colonel Taylor.
It's something that I would love to try. I have not tried Colonel Taylor yet. Same with a high-end Stag. And there's a story between those two, by the way.
I want the Weller Antique. That's the one I want a bottle of real bad. I get it every time I go to Brick and Bourbon, but I'm sick of paying $20 a shot. I just want one bottle. I can't find it. So this is like, when you have those kind of tears, it's easier to come back from when you're a lighter human being. When you're heavier, more strain on the knee. Therefore, it's a more grueling rehab process, which is why they still say 9 to 12 months. So did they rush him back? I mean, there's a real chance. There's a chance it's like, hey, we understand that it's just going to kind of be a week-to-week thing, and they're not having that specific conversation publicly. But with Darrisaw, it's like, hey, you're healthy enough to come back. Let's go. So we'll see. I think we'll get some answers this offseason. I think it'll be interesting to see if the medical staff stays, because there's been a lot of talk about the medical staff and how there have been so many injuries, and arguably from the outside perspective, mishandling of some injuries. There's a whole lot that goes into these conversations. I'm not an expert, nor will I try to be when it comes to the medical profession. My wife is a pharmacist. She knows a ton more than I do about this kind of stuff. But if the public perception that, hey, something's going on with these guys, maybe that turns out to be the case. I know Tyler Williams is the second head trainer, I guess is what you call it, head of the Vikings quote unquote medical department. I'm not quite sure the exact verbiage, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Since Kevin O'Connell took over. So a lot of interesting pieces that we can talk about. And I think Black Monday is going to give us a lot of answers. It would not shock me if the Vikings don't let anybody go on Black Monday and they do it on like Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. My guess is Kevin O'Connell is going to want to have a lot of exit interviews before he makes those final decisions. Remember, Ed Donatel wasn't fired until like a week and a half later because they wanted to try and just go through due process. And it was the first offseason fully for Kwesi Ofemensah and Kevin O'Connell and just trying to do the right thing. So a lot of interesting things to talk about, but this Giants game, last part of the preview, just stack drives, score points, do the right things, and go and get a win in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I think they have a real opportunity to do so on Sunday. So a lot of interesting elements to talk about there, and we will be back Saturday. Dave and Darren, two old bloggers. We'll see if
Bunting.
I don't know. Is Darren going to have power up there in the Yukon?
Well, he should. Now, originally, earlier in the week, Darren emailed me and said, Dave, we spend Christmas with the in-laws down in Alberta. And I love how it's down in Alberta.
Hey, I'm going to go south to Alberta.
And so I said, okay. And he says, can't make it. And then he came back and said, no, we're not leaving till Monday. I said, okay, cool. But it's going to be me, Darren, and the Drewster for the whole show.
Hey.
So
well, I mean, Drew's got the flexibility to do that because Michigan didn't make the college football playoff. So that's perfect.
You're making brownie points with Drew.
I like Drew. I've always liked Drew, but hey, I expect the same in return. So my Gators didn't make it. They freaking went 4-8, and they already have 16 guys ready to enter the portal. So it's not rosy in Gainesville either. I can tell you that. But two old bloggers Saturday, Sunday, we will have the post game show. Monday night, the Real Forno Show. We might have a Real Forno Show on Tuesday. There will not be one on Wednesday because of the Christmas holiday, and we want to make sure that you guys have a chance to enjoy it too. But there will be a post-game show after the game on Christmas Day.
Now, there will be on Wednesday a Who Will Be King show. Not on our channel. It'll be on the Frustrated Chicago Sports Fans channel. But there will be because we play the Kittens on Christmas Day.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be hyped for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope everybody celebrates that the quesarito is back at Taco Bell because that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I might have to convince the wife to get Taco Bell tomorrow. I want a quesarito. But thank you guys so much for joining. And remember, we do have the questions doc in the comments. No questions this week, but if you ever have a question, throw it in there. And then also you can check on the post tab on YouTube. There's the Real Forno Show survey. A bunch of people responded. Thank you for the honest feedback. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm looking to make this show better and better as we move forward. Might have to get some guests. Had a lot of people request guests. So we might have to work on that this offseason. Maybe just special one-off shows or something to bring that along with this. But we'll do a lot of different things this offseason to try and make things better. Thank you guys so much. 1 week until Christmas. Enjoy a great weekend of football. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings, everybody.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!